Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Arden, and welcome to Monday Night Live, live and recorded for you and people from all around the world. Tonight, I've got Ken Scott, the legend Ken Scott, on. Ken was the producer who produced a number of the Beatles records, David Bowie, Elton John, you name them. Ken was there. And look at those gold discs that are behind Ken. I was introduced to Ken by Patricia Fripp from the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. And in fact, I immediately bought his book, Abbey Road to Ziggy Stardust. And I was so taken by it, I contacted Ken and I asked him if he would come on and join us. I had to dig out this record, of course, Don't Shoot Me, I'm the Piano Player by Elton John, because I believe, Ken, you produced that. You were the
No,
producer.
I engineered it. I would
You
love to have
engineered
produced
it.
it, but I
Yeah.
just engineered it. Same with the Beatles. It was George Martin was the producer. I can never take credit away from George.
Do forgive me, Ken. I get some of
Don't
the
worry.
technicalities wrong.
I
I just listen to the music.
I
Ken, thanks,
understand.
Ken, thanks for joining us. You're a
My
Cockney
pleasure.
like me. We were born
Yep.
within the sound of Bow Bells. Tell me, why did you apply to be an engineer at Abbey Road Studios at the age of 16?
I got a tape recorder when I was 12 and a half and fell in love with tape and being able to record and edit, cut the tape and stick the pieces together to make something different and all of that. So I determined I my inner voice. I am a firm believer in the inner voice. You can call it in different names, women's intuition, whatever. It's something that has led me through 63 years of the most incredible life in the studio. I listen to that inner voice all the time. And that inner voice, I wasn't aware of it at the time, but at 12 and a half, that inner voice told me that I had to work with tape. I had to record people. So when I was 16, I was fed up with school. One Friday evening, I wrote to everyone I could find in a phone directory and that might need someone called a recording engineer. Because no one back then, this was 1964, no one really knew what a recording engineer was. No one quite knew what happened in recording studios. So it was kind of a strange thing, and there weren't too many people sending letters back then, unlike today. And so I wrote about 10 letters on the Friday evening, sent them out on the Saturday, heard back from one of the places on the Tuesday, had an interview on the Wednesday, and was accepted for a position at that place on the Friday, left school that day, and started the following Monday. And that was, at the time, it was the EMI Recording Studios. And of course, today it's Abbey Road Studios, probably the most famous recording studio in the world.
Ken, within 3 weeks, you were sneaking around watching the Beatles recording, I think, and you
Yes,
nearly got
and getting thrown out of the studio by George Martin.
didn't you nearly get sacked for that, or did you think you nearly got sacked for that?
Oh, I thought I would nearly get sacked for it, but look, I was 16. They were the biggest band in the world. They were my favorite band. I couldn't care less if I got fired at that point. I'd been in the studio with the Beatles. Yay!
Wow, that's fantastic. And what was the first Beatles record or piece of music that you were responsible for, even if it was only pressing the buttons?
Well, that was side two of A Hard Day's Night. That was I started. I first went into the studio and saw them and took some pictures and everything and got thrown out by George, probably about 3 weeks after starting at Abbey Road, and then it would have been about 2 months later that I was promoted to assistant engineer and pushing the buttons. And the first thing I ever worked on was side two of A Hard Day's Night.
How did you learn the skills though? Because you were only 16 or 17. You
Yeah,
must have been very nervous that you might have got something wrong.
of course. But one of the things that I've learned, wha- mistakes happen. We are human, and it's they make life interesting. I just in general everyday life, the mistakes that we make, and in that kind of situation, that I made lots of mistakes, and luckily, I quite often I think I was going to be fired, and I never was. So, well, I was eventually, but not for a mistake. Uh, no, it's yeah. Of course, I was nervous. This is the biggest band in the world, and I'm there, and Yeah, but believe me, the nerves and nervousness came much later, because then after a couple of years, I was promoted to being the actual recording engineer, the guy that sat behind the mixing console, pushed up all the faders and turned the knobs and all of that to get the sound. And I had never sat behind a mixing console before in my life. I'd watched seven of the greatest recording engineers around at that time and saw what they did, but I'd never actually done it myself. And it's not until you sit there and do it that you start to learn really what you're doing. And of course, that first session, once again, was the Beatles. It was recording Your Mother Should Know for the Magical
Wow.
Mystery Tour album. And luckily, that first session was a complete write-off for me, because I didn't know what I was doing. And luckily, Paul had decided that he wanted to try a new arrangement of the song. They'd already recorded the song once. Paul wanted to try a new arrangement on it, which didn't work. So it didn't matter that I hadn't got it right. But then I feel that a lot of the engineer, producer, artist thing, it's very personality driven. If you get on if you all get on together well, it keeps going ahead. You create the best things. And I guess because I'd worked with the Beatles from side two of A Hard Day's Night through Rubber Soul as an assistant engineer, there was enough of a relationship that between us that they were willing to trust me and move forward. And within a couple of days of that first session, I did my first orchestral session, which was the orchestra on I Am the Walrus. So luckily that one did work.
Now I'm going to ask you what what were the Beatles like? And I know you never liked being asked that question in the past until you asked somebody what was Elvis like, and then you realized that that's what
Yeah.
people wanted to know. Tell us
Oh yeah,
about
yeah.
what the Beatles were like, Ken.
What they were like. George was probably, even though he was always considered the quiet Beatle, he was one of the funniest guys I've ever met. He was hysterical. He was the most down to earth one, and no one that went through what the Beatles went through would. You could never come out the same at the end. And it's almost impossible to be a normal human being at the end of all of that, because it was ridiculous what they went through. The only peace and quiet they ever got was in the bathroom. And so George came out of it the closest to a regular human being of any of the four of them. John was exactly what you'd think of him. He could be a really nice guy, he could be very funny, and he could be a complete asshole. And just flick of a switch, he could suddenly change. Ringo was Ringo. He could be funny at times, but he just sat there and played. And Paul has to be loved. I look, I'm 79. I guess I can speak my voice now, not to give much of a damn. I look, personally, I don't like him. It's he needs to be loved, and so he will always be nice to everyone. It doesn't matter what, knowing that there's the guy behind that will stick the knife in your back if need be, that kind of thing. And yeah, so that's my feeling on the four of them.
You must have worked quite closely with someone like Paul on numbers like Yesterday. That's
I didn't actually work on Yesterday, and that was the much earlier stuff when I was just a an assistant engineer at that point. And yes, there was interaction, but a lot of the time I wasn't even in the studio, because the four-track machine we were using was in a different room. So they would run through the numbers a couple of times. Then when it came time to start recording, I would go off into the other room, and there was this small intercom system that was rigged up, that the engineer, Norman Smith, would say, okay, hit record now. Boom, I'd hit record. He'd tell me when to stop. He'd tell me when to play and all of that. I just heard a little through this small speaker up there, and I could only listen to one track at a time. It wasn't the easiest of situations.
doesn't sound very easy at all. Then you went to France, didn't you, to record Honky Chateau and a lot of Elton John's music. I think that was you said that was for tax reasons that you ended up in a French chateau for a number of months.
Yeah, correct. Believe me, it wasn't my tax situation. It was Elton's, of course. No, there was a thing at the time where if the money didn't come into England, you didn't have to pay tax on it. So quite a lot of artists at that point were recording outside and had most of their royalties paid into a foreign bank, and they just have like English royalties would be paid over here. So it was better off for them. And Elton had recorded most of his early stuff at a studio I was working at called Trident. And I first started working with Elton because he had recorded Madman Across the Water. And the engineer that was doing it, he was in a very bad car accident. We didn't think he was going to live, actually, at one point. It was so bad. He did. Uh, but of course, it's commerce always wins out. So they'd recorded the album, but they needed to mix it, complete it. And I'd worked with the producer, Gus Dudgeon, before. And so I was brought in to mix Madman. And from there, I went on to do Honky Chateau and Don't Ship Me a Moan as a piano player, which were both done at the Strawberry Studios, Chateau d'Eraville. It's gone under various names. But yeah, in France, which was fun. Look, the things that I've seen in my life is just absolutely unbelievable. I was there when Elton wrote Rocket Man in 10 minutes. It's we what would happen is when we were first starting the recording, Bernie Taupin, who wrote the lyrics, would go up to his bedroom sort of relatively early at night and come down for breakfast. It was communal living. He'd come down and we'd all be sitting around the table having breakfast. He'd come down with a pile of notepaper, give them to Elton, and Elton would go through them whilst he's eating.
What's okay mean?
I'm sorry?
Somebody's unmuted themselves. So I keep going,
Okay,
Ken.
keep going. Okay. So he'd give these notes to Elton. Elton would go through them whilst he's eating breakfast and find a couple that he liked. When he'd finished, he'd go over to the piano, and there was this one particular set that he liked, and sat down and immediately put music to the lyrics of Rocket Man. And as I say, it took 10 minutes. Then immediately went over and recorded it.
Wow. And do you think, and you put there's some really good sound on the back of that. Did you put that on there, Ken?
Well, along with the musicians, yes.
Oh
Not
yeah,
all
no, I
me.
know that, but it's very clever, and I'm giving you credit for it because
Thank you.
I've
Now
got
on the
it in
next
my head,
album,
and I expect most other people have got Rocket Man in their head.
you mentioned "Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player." Well, I think the first single off of that was a song called Daniel,
It was.
and I played the solo on that on an ARP synthesizer. So I have played on a number one album before now, so which pleased me.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I've got Daniel in my head as well.
Hmm.
And how did you cope with their hours? Because I know you mentioned in your book you had to be up at 2, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. You had to wait for the artists for whatever funny times they kept.
It was absolutely no problem. Look, I was young, and it was exciting, and it was look probably. There's every likelihood that if I wasn't in the studio recording them until God knows what time at night, I would have been in the club somewhere getting drunk every night until the early hours of the morning. So, yeah, no, it probably kept me sane.
And you kept away from any of the funny stuff that we read about that goes on.
Mostly, I think I smoked grass for about a week. And then I decided that when I was smoking grass and having a drink, I preferred having a drink. So I gave up the funny stuff and just stuck with alcohol.
No, that sounds very wise. Tell us that funny story.
Oh, I don't know about that at times, but
Tell us that funny story about George Harrison being recognized when he was in the street.
oh, he wasn't a fan of that. It was he always he always felt strange with the limelight. It was and especially when it's always the Beatles. It was always George Harrison of the Beatles, and that was 6 years. He had a much longer career as a solo artist, nothing to do with the Beatles, but he was always thought of as being George Harrison of the Beatles. And if he was walking down the street and someone came up to him and said, "Aren't you George Harrison?" He said, I get that all the time. I actually think I'm better looking than him. What do you think? And they'd, oh yeah, I guess you are. And then they'd walk off and leave.
I think that happened to you, didn't it, at the weekend in London, Ken?
Yeah, except I didn't say that I looked better than me. So I did have pictures taken. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, let's turn to David Bowie now, because I know you were a big fan of David Bowie and you really liked him.
Oh, he was brilliant. It's as far as vocal performances, whether you like his voice or not. I know he hated his voice. He never thought particularly liked singing. He considered himself more a writer. And but when he performed in the studio, I co-produced 4 albums with him. And of those 4 albums, somewhere between 90 and 95% of the vocal takes, it's the first take and it's from beginning to end. I would play a little bit of the song, the tape with the song, so that I could just get a level and the sound on the voice. Go back, I'd hit record, and what he did that one time through is what we still hear 50 years later. It's unbelievable. I've never come across a vocalist quite like him before.
And
It's
where
normally it's normally you have to go back and do a section and quite these days it's you'll go through and you'll use auto tune and all of that and copy and paste bits. Singers quite often refuse to sing a chorus more than once. It's oh you can copy and paste it and put it over. It's it, yeah, it's a joke these days, but he was absolutely brilliant. And what I love because I was there if you like, I started his career because Hunky Dory, the first album I did with him, was the one that really broke him. But it was great talking to recently to the engineer that worked with him on his last album. And we were talking about his professionalism in the studio and everything in his vocals. And Kevin, the engineer, he said it was exactly the same when he knew he was dying of cancer as at the beginning. They'd all be in the control room laughing and joking. He'd say, okay, let me go in and do the vocal. He'd go in, one take, come back in, and then they'd be back laughing and joking again. And that's what you heard. So all the way through his career, it was that simple and he was that good. He was a brilliant man. He really was in so many ways. He
thanks.
thought he foresaw the internet, its good side and its bad side, well before most people had ever even heard of it.
Ken, one of the questions that we've got in the chat box, which a lot of
Yeah.
people must be thinking about, is what does an engineer do and what does a producer do?
Okay. Probably because I lived in or around Hollywood for a number of years, I liken it to a film crew. You've got the cinematographer, the guy that makes the film look the way it does. He decides the lenses that are going to be used, how where they're going to shoot from, all that kind of thing. That's like recording engineer. It's the engineer determines what mics are going to be used, where they're going to be positioned, how the record is going to sound. The producer of a record is the director of a movie. It's you're there to get the best out of the actor or the singer or musicians and put together the best performance from all of them exactly the same way as a director. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, no, thank you for that. So tell us what are those gold albums at the back and what's a Clio? You've got a Clio for the Coke advert.
Yes, oh, excuse me. Yeah, one of those very strange situations. A lot of engineers learn their trade, their art, their gig by doing ads for radio, TV, just the music for that. And it's very quick and you learn very quickly doing those. You have to. Well, I've only ever done one ad, And it just so happened it was the New Seekers, and it was I'd like to buy the world a Coke, and it became the ad of the 70s. It was, I don't know if any of you have seen the TV series Mad Men, but it was the finale of that. It was John Hamm suddenly had this brilliant idea, and you suddenly see that ad, and it won a Clio, which was I guess it's the advertising world's Grammy, if you like. So yeah, my life has been bizarre.
And what about those gold discs behind you, behind us, behind you? Just
Yeah.
share what some of those are. What were the
Well,
big?
there are four for Bowie, which would be Hunky Dory, Ziggy Stardust, Alain Insane, and Pinups. Supertramp, there a couple for them. Then I've got right in front of me, I've got for sales of more than 24 million copies of the Apple album, The Beatles, which was the White Album. Uh, also up there behind me somewhere is a big thing for All Things Was Past, George Harrison. Uh, it, there are a lot that I didn't get that have sold that many, but I didn't get golds for. More the engineering side, like the two Elton John albums. I did the first America album. Uh, yeah, various things like that.
Ken, what are you the most proudest of?
Oh, just my whole career. I can't pick one particular thing. If I were to try, it would come down. It would be different every day. Uh, there's very few things that I can listen to these days that I don't think, oh God, why did I do that? I could have done that differently. There are a few, but not many.
And has the world of AI changed your view on anything, or do you think everything should still be done the old way?
I refuse to answer that one. No, it's look, I love technology. It's amazing. The problem with technology is us. We as humans, we have to overdo everything. I started when I started recording, I started using 4 tracks, which meant that you had to record like you'd have the bass, drums, guitar, and maybe a keyboard on one track. Then you'd put guitar solo and percussion on another track. And you only had four, but you had to record instruments together. The band had to play together. These days, now, and we always wanted more. So we moved from 4 track to 8 track, then to 16 track, then to 24, then to 48. Now we have as many tracks as you can possibly want. And what that has led to is that people won't make decisions. They will record like 20 different guitar solos and then pass it off to someone else to make the decision which it should be. And it's things like that. And w- w- there's also we used to the Beatles were amazing because they, amongst other things, because they would push us as the engineers and the technicians to come up with new things on the fly, different sounds, different ways of using equipment, and all. And in fact, getting talking the tech department into making new equipment that they wanted. And we were struggling to try and keep up and come up with all of these new things. Now everything's there just at the push of a button. And people will spend hours just pushing the button. Yeah, I don't like that one. Yeah, that one's close. Let's put that one to it. Yeah. And they don't have to particularly work for it, other than their finger might get a blister at the end for just keep on pushing it. Uh, so we are the problem. And with AI definitely has its uses without a shadow of a doubt. But we're going to overuse it, as is being proved, I think, already with so much, like with universities. I keep on seeing things where people are using AI to write their term papers and all of that kind of thing, which is ridiculous. It yeah.
Ken, the final question really is, how did you work with groups that didn't get on with each other? I know that there were a lot of groups and a lot of groups broke up, but you must have been in the studio and There must have been all sorts of aggro going on.
There weren't many. Uh, the the worst one for me was a band, the hardest one. It was a band called the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which was a jazz fusion band that were absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, for one reason or another, they started to fall apart in the studio, and things like the violinist trying to put his fist through a door that thick, and how he didn't break his hand, I've no idea because he did it hard, and it's yeah, that was the worst one. There's always a certain amount of tension at some point. I've worked on projects that have taken 2 weeks, and at some point the artistic temperament comes in, and someone will get on edge, and there'll be a slight argument. It's over within half an hour, and you move on. And it's some quite often something actually does come out of those 30 minutes. But there's there's not much more than that. I know there's been this whole thing about the Beatles, and when we were recording the White Album, they were falling apart, and it was argument after argument after argument. It wasn't. We had a great time doing it. It was, yes, of course, there was tension at times, but most of it was absolute fun, and we had a blast.
And the White Album sold over 24 million copies.
Yes.
That's amazing. Ken, we've run out of time actually, but
Okay.
Ken, I know that you speak around the country and take every opportunity to speak. How does
Which is,
anyone that's listening to this get hold of you, Ken?
I don't know if you'll see this properly.
Hold it steady, Ken. That says
I'm trying my hardest. It's Ken Scott to talk at gmail.com. Ken
And how do
Scott
they?
to talk at gmail.com.
Fantastic. And Ken, how do they get hold of Abbey Road?
You can, I guess, Amazon. It's that's probably the best bet.
Yeah, that's how I got it. So, can I ask members of Monday Night Live to give the legend Ken Scott the usual vote of thanks in the normal Monday Night
Oh,
Live way?
thank you so much. Thank you. Hope to
Ken
do it
Scott,
again.
yes, please, Ken, if you come back and join us in the autumn. But again, can I thank you, Ken Scott, for joining Monday Night Live? Absolutely fascinating. We love your stories, and I think I'd have liked to have met some of those people. Will you stay on and join us for a debrief?
Absolutely, most definitely.